This is All India Radio. Power of Listening. Under this series, tonight we take you on a journey to the world of yet another magnificent facet of the traditional Indian knowledge systems. I'm Manoj Mainkar. Ancient Indian Observatories. In the second and the concluding part of this theme, in today's episode, we shall be continuing on the history of the rich legacy of observatories in ancient India. The expert on the show is Dr. Abhirup Datta. Talking to him is Parul Janagal. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to another episode of Power of Listening. My name is Professor Abhirup Datta. I am a professor at Department of Astronomy, Astrophysics and Space Engineering in IIT Indore, and I am here with our senior PhD student Parul Janagal. We will continue our discussion from the previous episode with some of the questions Parul had regarding ancient India and its observatories. Parul?
Thank you, sir, for being here again with me. Last time we had a nice discussion about the historical stand of India in astronomy, the contributions of Maharaja Savai Jai Singh II, and the observatories he built in different parts of India. I still have so many questions. Thanks for being here.
We actually started off discussing last time about the nuances of current today's astronomy and the progress which has been made, and we are really fortunate that being an astronomer, the general public is really excited not only in India but across the world about astronomy and the findings which we are getting every day, particularly in the context of this recent launch of JWST, or the James Webb Space Telescope. We spoke about 5 observatories built by Savai Jai Singh, first one in Delhi, then in Jaipur, then Varanasi, Ujjain and Mathura. The largest one being in Jaipur, but the most famous instrument out of all of them remains still the Mishra-yantra in Delhi Observatory. And then we continued to discussing that ancient India had a lot of contribution from mathematicians turned astronomers about calculation of heavenly bodies across the sky. But we found very few yantras or very few observatories in the ancient India. In that context, the work of Maharaja Savai Jai Singh II is significant. He built 5 observatories, although they are not synonymous to the observatories of the current day. Like when we talk about observatory, we think of an optical telescope with a big dome and moving into and taking fantastic pictures. These were not non-telescopic observatories, or basically masonries mostly. Instruments to measure the movement of the bodies across the sky. Mainly we measure the time and the position based on the shadows. Just to add on or move to the next topic, add to what Savai Jai Singh stands for. He was a ruler. He was born in a royal family. He had keen interest in astronomy. He has so much deep interest that he actually built models out of wax, and before he started developing the instruments in the 5 observatories. Now the question remains, he built his observatories between 1721 to 1734, whereas we see technically the optical telescope was available from 1609. But if you remember, the day and age we are talking about, the progress of passing on information from Europe back to India took a lot of time. So there are different discourses on this particular topic, that why Savai Jai Singh has to resort to non-telescopic observatory and why can't he build the first optical observatory in India. And I think there's most of the jury is still out there when we don't have much information of what exactly was the delay for. But I think we can imagine that because of this European development coming to India can be delayed heavily. Those days we resorted on writing letters. The exchanges could have delayed the things. So he has to finally use what he has, technology available with him, the masonry, and he made marvel out of it. So it's still a civil engineering feat and the first astronomical observatories in India. So I think we are fortunate to have them. So after talking about the Jaipur Observatory, obviously the next one which comes into picture is the Varanasi Observatory. Now, as we just want to put a context to the latitude and longitude, this Varanasi Observatory is built in 25 degree 18 minutes north latitude and 83 degree east latitude. So it is the next one after the Jaipur Observatory. It is not as big as Jaipur Observatory or not even as bigger as the Delhi Observatory. It has total 7 instruments. It has a Samrat Yantra, has 2 Samrat Yantra, large and the small, a Narivila Yantra, along with a Chakra Yantra and 2 Dakshinotra Yantra, along with 1 Digamsha Yantra. So we are not discussing all of the yantras because it's difficult to explain it on this particular platform. But Samrat Yantra we already spoke in before, and Narivalai and Ram Yantra we have spoken in details. So after Varanasi, we come to Ujjain Observatory, which is located at 23 degree 10 minutes north and longitude 75 degree 46 minutes east. This is not as big as the both Delhi and Jaipur observatories. It is more like the size of the observatories in Varanasi. It has Samrat Yantra, Narivala Yantra, Digamsa Yantra, and 3 others, Dakshinotra, Agra, and Pallava. And it also has a recent yantra called Shankujantra. Shankujantra is located about 10 meters to the northeast of the Samrat Yantra, and the instrument is of recent origin. It consists of a circular scale with a pole or rod at the center of the 45-meter high masonry platform. The major division of the scale are in degrees and are divided into 10 minutes of the arc, and the 0 point of the scale is at the north point. The Shankujantra measures the agra or the amplitude of the sun at sunrise or at sunset by the shadow of its poles falling on the yantra scale. Using a string with one of the tied end to the pole and other stretched along its shadow, one may determine the azimuth of the sun at any other time as well. By measuring the shadow of the noon hour sun, the declination of the sun can also be determined. In this manner, you can actually determine the seasons, the months of the year. So that's all about the Ujjain Observatory. In fact, we are in talks with the observatory to how to include these yantras in our pedagogical course of astronomy, positional astronomy mainly. And it is maintained and very well maintained by the GIG Vedshala people. And they also actually have newly formed some Nakshatra Vatika around that place. So we should definitely visit at some point with all the members of the department. The last observatory is in Mathura. It is in 27 degree 30 minutes north and 77 degree 42 minutes east. It is I can say the smallest observatory of among all the 5. It has a Narivalai, Agra Yantra, Shankujantra, and a Dakshinotra Bhitti Yantra. So that brings us to the end of the discussion for all the telescopes that Swai Jai Singh built. It's very important to note down that Swai Jai Singh, being a ruler, is very enthusiastic about astronomy, and he contributed a lot in the time where the tables, the calculations went horribly south, and he restored some of the tables. He not only did observations, but also he done a lot of translation of the texts from Sanskrit, and his contribution to the Indian astronomy is really, really notable in this context. So we hope that you have now gotten a gist of what different kinds of observatories Swai Jai Singh built in India.
Wow, this is all so marvelous. It is exciting to find that India has a large number of observatories made by people so forward in time and their thinking. I'm curious to know how positional astronomy is done now, especially because we have access to the technology which was absent in the early days.
Yeah, that's also interesting. Positional astronomy actually is very necessary. In fact, we were just discussing the other day with some of my colleagues that how do we expose or how do we introduce the subject of astronomy to an undergraduate student, basically. from engineering background. See, more of these instruments which we just discussed, that's why Jai Singh made, they were definitely very useful to measure time, position, all those are fine. But one thing is that they are basically masonry observatories. They were telescopes which were civil engineering marvels that we have to basically appreciate. So there are a lot of engineering efforts which has gone to make such instruments with such high degree of precision, measuring time to 2 seconds. Now, positional astronomy, that's why is very necessary subject, even pedagogically teaching astronomy to general public and undergraduates who are never exposed to the subject of astronomy before. But it has other directions also. In the early days, when observatories like Jantar Mantar were built, there wasn't much light pollution and pollution in general. So the sky was much clear. For us now, things are difficult, but also we have the means to counter these problems. The main challenge in the positional astronomy is to measure everything from a fast-moving, wobbly platform through a haze. Basically, observe everything from the constantly moving Earth through the dusty and polluted atmosphere. Nowadays, besides the obvious need for astronomers to know where in the sky to point their telescopes, accurate star positions are needed to keep artificial satellites pointing the right way and to help in the navigation of spacecraft. We need impeccable accuracy for these measurements, so we have to be extra careful of all the possible effects. The fact that Earth wobbles around its rotational axis are a concern. The tidal effects due to the moon's gravity also affect the measurements. So we have to remove all these distortions when mapping the positions of different astronomical objects from the Earth's reference. Among all of these, we also need to understand that the stars also move, so their positions also change with time. We now have such advanced computers and telescopes that we can map the position and velocity of stars at any given time. And again, all of this necessary for understanding how galaxies work and even bigger questions about the universe that we live in. But we should also appreciate that even today, measuring something precisely in the celestial sphere is the most important and still the most difficult object. If you remember, the scales which Swai Jai Singh was measuring is 1/10 of a degree. Now, from the ground, we are getting, say, few arc seconds of accuracy. But you are aware of this EHT or Event Horizon Telescope, which is measuring the size of the black hole, not only in other galaxies but also in our galaxy. They require higher than milliarc second accuracy. So the demand for better and bigger instrument, more sensitive instrument is still on. So if we go back and put in context what Jai Singh achieved in early 1700, was amazing, because even today this positional astronomy is not only important to introduce astronomy to general people, undergraduate students or school children, it is also important in coming back in navigation. As I mentioned briefly earlier, that there's a concept, there's a branch called celestial navigation. Sailors in deep sea in early times, when there was no telescopes, no GPS, no navigation, satellite navigation systems, used to use pole stars. Used to measure using instruments like sextants to measure how far are they away from the nearest shore. Look for lighthouses and other things. Even today, there is a branch of navigation which are relying on locating pulsars, for example, for navigation, for deep space navigation, where you do not have any GPS or any other satellite navigation system. You refer to the sky, refer to the celestial objects. Even on Earth, we have satellites, but we have satellites, so we can misuse satellites. So you have something and you can jam the signal as well. So be able to have anti-spoofing technologies available, we are again relying back on celestial navigation system. So it's again coming back and going back in time and learning what we already knew in the time of Swai Singh, try to make it better using the current day and age technology available.
So, talking about the recent times, how has India contributed to astronomy?
First thing to note here is that everything we have talked about so far comes well under optical astronomy. The positional astronomy mostly is what you can see. This type is done using the eyes or telescopes we normally see, the ones with a complex arrangement of lenses and curved mirrors. Within the last 150 years or so, we have found that we can observe unique physical phenomena at multiple different wavelengths. In fact, it is very important and a very important branch of astronomy which has started, which calls multi-wavelength, multi-messenger astronomy. Basically, our eye is only sensitive to the visible wavelength. But apart from that, there are things which occur which we don't see. I'm not talking about spooky things, but I'm telling, supposedly you're using your cell phone and you don't see the waves coming and hitting the cell phone, but you still answer to your calls and you send messages, we send pictures, we send data using communications which we cannot see. That means they exist. We have telescopes operating at different wavelengths that give us information about the physics that is happening in the universe. Unless we culminate all the information from different wavelengths, we cannot make the complete picture of a particular celestial object on the sky. We will only be one of those 7 blind men which are touching the elephant and inferring about different things where the elephant still remains at large, unobserved or undetected. So, and India is actually making its mark in this particular field. Apart from the historic observatories which we spoke at great lengths, India has many telescopes facilities operating throughout the electromagnetic spectrum. We have optical, we have infrared observatories in Hanley. There are ultraviolet and X-ray telescopes in the space on the AstroSat mission, India's own space observatory. We have upgraded giant meter wave radio telescope in Pune, a fascinating object which I particularly use a lot, which is a marvelous piece of art and science and is one of a kind of telescope. This is just located 80 kilometers north of Pune in the vicinity of Narangao. This is not an exhaustive list. India is constantly performing better and making its mark in the world of astronomy. I must note that there is a vision of 2035 where India actually makes a mark. It is a part of 3 giant observatories. One of them is called Square Kilometer Array, which is an international collaboration. The telescopes has to be built in Western Australia and South Africa, and India is a part of it, and radio astronomers in India are contributing to this particular project very, very vigorously. The second one in the list is the India's own Gravitational Wave Observatory, which is going to be coming up somewhere in Maharashtra, and institutes like Ayuka in Pune and RRCat in Indore in our vicinity are definitely contributing to that particular mega science project. The third one is a 30-meter class telescope in optical wavelength, and that's where IIA in Bangalore come in, and a lot of optical astronomers are getting up to contribute to this particular project. So as you can see, that India is not only has a great past in the field of astronomy, astronomical calculations, when we talk about astronomers like Aryabhat or Vara-Amir, but also a very substantiate contribution in the observatories when it comes to the civil engineering marvels like Jantar Mantar, but fast tracking that to the modern day observatories where we have GMRT, AstroSat and optical telescopes in Henley.
So clearly India has made its mark in the field of astronomy, and as you said, there are plenty of missions that India will be a part of in the future. I wonder if there are any more missions where India is sending satellites, especially in space, and probably the question that has excited most people about when are we going into the space?
Yeah, that's actually very exciting, and as you know, the with the recent developments with the Indian Space Research Organization, a lot of telescopes are being planned. One particular thing is about X-ray polarimeter satellite, XPOSat. And of course, we are getting more and more planetary missions, and maybe another Mars mission, another moon mission with a lander, rover, and orbiter. We are also gearing up for a few other missions which are currently finished their seed funding and maybe going to the project state in radio, in infrared, and in gamma rays. Besides this, the most exciting part in Indian space activities, this announcement of Gaganyaan, or the Indian human space mission, where the plan is to send humans in deep space and make a progress in that direction. So overall, I think it's a golden age of astronomy and space sciences in India. We have a golden past, a bright future ahead, and we are fortunate to be in this particular age. So students like you and whoever is coming in, we should be excited to utilize all of those facilities and look forward to a bright future.
Thank you so much for this very insightful session. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Parul.
Ancient Indian Observatories, Part 2. You heard the 48th episode of our all-new series on traditional Indian knowledge systems, Power of Listening. The expert on the show was Dr. Abhirup Datta, Professor of Astrophysics, IIT Indore, and Indologist. Talking to him was Parul Janagal, an Indologist pursuing PhD in Astrophysics. We hope you enjoyed the program. This program was produced by Brahma Prakash Chaturvedi and Vinod Kumar. Special thanks to AIR Indore and Randheer Thakur for their contributions. This episode is also available on our official YouTube channel, Akashvani AIR. Be there on the 2nd of September, same time, same frequencies. This is Manoj Mainkar signing off from Delhi. Bye for now.